What is up, everyone? And you are watching Crypto Grinders, and my name is Ryan. And Crypto Grinders is an established channel that is focused on educating the masses about investing and trading in cryptocurrencies and blockchain companies. Now, in today's episode, however, we are going to be covering something entirely outside of the crypto space, nothing to do with cryptocurrencies or blockchain, but it concerns you and it is entirely about you. Now, how come people, or how are people, and why are people not able to achieve financial freedom? And I think financial freedom is something that is very, very unique to each and every single individual. Financial freedom does not mean that you have to be a millionaire. I repeat, financial freedom does not mean that you have to be a millionaire. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing my definition of financial freedom, and hopefully this episode inspires you to find your financial freedom. I think financial freedom, especially for myself, actually it's not about having $1 million. It was never about having $1 million for me. It was more of stop having all these loans, stop having all these credit card debts, stop having a mortgage that I had to pay every month. I just felt that all these things were extremely annoying. Okay, because if you are receiving your monthly salary, okay, and if you're receiving your monthly salary every month, once your paycheck comes in, it goes out to all these things. Whether is it your credit card bills, your that you put you bought something and you put an installment on your credit card. You are someone who kind of spends way too much, and then there's that monthly rolling where you didn't pay the credit card bill completely, and then there's that interest that keeps piling up. Or you're someone who has you already have a mortgage, okay, you have a mortgage, or you have a car loan, okay. I think these are the main factors that people are having at the moment. Now, the question is, why do you want to have all these things running? Sometimes it may be even a student loan, okay? So everyone has a different kind of circumstance. Everyone has a different requirement, okay? So it all boils down to what kind of lifestyle that you are wanting to achieve. And I completely understand, because when you are coming from a first world country, okay, there are a lot of distractions out there, and at the same time, we are all very status conscious. Whether you want to admit it or not, we are all status conscious. And this is one of the main reasons why people actually go into debt. Because nowadays, right, it is so easy to just go onto your mobile phone and be very absorbed in the lifestyle of others. You have an Instagram account, you will wonder, hey, what is it like having this particular person's lifestyle, or at least experiencing a little bit of that person's lifestyle, okay? And there is nothing wrong with that, okay? There is nothing wrong with that. It is not sinful to want to be better. It is not sinful to want to have all these things. But we have to go down to the basics. How much are you actually making for you to achieve or even attain or live that kind of lifestyle of that person that you admire? Okay, so you have to be very, very realistic. Now, it may not be someone even on Instagram, it may just be your neighbor. Okay, and I think this kind of thing is very subtle. It may be your neighbor, it may be your colleague in the office, it may be your boss. I don't know who you are trying to keep up with. Sometimes it may even be yourself. Okay, so let me just share a little bit about what I had to do, or what I had to go through, what I struggled with, and then you will more or less, help you to identify. So when I was in my teens, right, I never came from a very good school. Okay, it was an okay school. All right, and the folks around me, they were all relatively. I would say everyone is from an average income family. Okay, everyone is from an average income family. Sure, you have some rich kids here and there. They would always have the latest soccer jersey, or the latest football or soccer boots. And I was always the guy who always bought the subpar stuff. Okay, I come from a very humble background. My parents are the kind that will work in the same job for the whole of their lives, and it's not like I was ever the guy who was, hey mom, dad, I wanted this, could you buy this for me? It wasn't that. It was never the case. Okay, I was a little bit fortunate when I was slightly younger, when my grandparents were around, because my grandparents were decently well to do. So, but then after, when my grandparents passed away, there was practically no wealth left behind. Okay, and obviously I wasn't expecting anything. I didn't know any of all this kind of stuff. I'm just relating this story to you. So don't take it as if like I was getting some kind of inheritance. Nothing of the sort. Okay, not even close. So I was always wondering, right? Why is it that other people could achieve all this kind of things, or why were they able to dress in a certain way? And I always wondered to myself, what was it like to be like that person? What was it like to actually drive a car like that? Okay, I wasn't into cars, but I always wondered, because I do have a keen taste for nice things. Okay, I do love fashion, I do love luxury brands. I know how to identify what's good. Okay, and I love great food. So these were the things that I liked even when I was younger. We're talking about in the teenage years. So when I graduated, all right, when I graduated, finished the army, I stepped into a sales job. Okay, and a sales job was something that I kind of fell into it. I didn't know whether I would be good in sales or not, but I always wondered what it was like. And at the time, the basic salary, that means my starting salary for that job, was $1,000. Okay, 1,000 Singapore dollars is basically maybe 700 US dollars per month. And at the time, I was 24 years old. Okay, so what was the rationale? I didn't have a degree. I only had a diploma. So not having a degree, already there were quite a number of doors shut from me already. At the time, diploma was still okay. You still could get a job, but it was always below 2,500 Singapore dollars. Okay, and below 2,500 Singapore dollars, that's roughly around 2,002 US dollars, to give you a rough gauge on what the exchange rate was all about. Okay, so I was okay. I was young. I didn't have any liabilities. It was a new opportunity for me. It was a great opportunity for me to learn about sales, how to interact with people, how to understand what kind of problems they had and how I could help them solve it. That was basically the main gist about my role. So when I was that age, right, I was able to at least bring in $5,000 to $7,000 a month, because I was relatively consistent. I was always very attentive to my customers who were walking in, and eventually those who became members, and especially when I stayed there for a decent amount of time, those that actually knew me would renew their memberships with me. So that's how I built a relationship. Okay, I learned to understand what they needed and what they liked about the gym, what they didn't like about the gym, and that was how I managed to make more money compared to my peers. Okay, but I asked myself, there's only so much that I could do. Okay, and based on the fact that the packages were only anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000, so I could not get past a certain income bracket. Okay, I couldn't get past a certain income bracket. Then I was introduced to a client of mine, a member who became a member. And then after that, what he did was he asked me, I was very curious, how come he would come to the gym at around 3 o'clock, just slightly after lunch. Everybody usually would be working, but he was able to gym from 3 to 5. And I asked him, what do you do? How come you're not at the office like everyone else? So he just said, well, I'm a banker. So as long as the sales were good, right? as long as clients were coming in for him, right? He would have the freedom to not have to be in the office. For myself, I wasn't having that kind of freedom. I was not having that kind of time freedom. Okay, so he said that, why don't you try and apply to become a banker yourself? So I said, what did it entail? What do you require? What's the prerequisites? So he said, well, firstly, you obviously have to have a degree, and then after that, you have to go through a series of certifications, and if you pass those certifications, you are more or less going to be able to be a banker. I was like, okay, fine. And there are two types of bankers, by the way: the retail bankers and the private bankers. Now, the private bankers are a different ball game, okay? Because those are the top of their class. Usually, they do very well in school, or they have very strong connections. I, having zero connections and zero degree, I had to work my way up from the gutter and come up. Okay, so how did I do it without a degree? Well, this, I have to say, I did have some form of help. And this was a guy from my church. He was, one of the global head of directors at the time. So I was just conversing with him and speaking to him. And he kind of liked the way I communicated with him. I always looked him in the eye. I was able to just have a keen sense of interest about certain things. So he said, hey, why don't you come and apply for a banker role in our bank? And at the time, it was Standard Chartered Bank. And he says, I'll get you in touch with my friend who is the branch manager. And this was the biggest branch in Singapore, okay, which was in the Central Business District. So it wasn't a small branch, neither, and I didn't know whether it mattered or not. I just wanted to get in. So I said, wow, okay, thank you, that would be great. And the interview went rather smoothly, and I got hired. From there, it opened a whole new era and arena for me. But because of that whole new arena, when I started to make more money, and because it was in such an environment, right, where everybody was wanting to keep up with the Joneses, I felt a certain amount of pressure. Not only did I have to look good, right, I also had to at least look the part that I was doing well. And this is the part where the fronting comes in. So I would be spending money on nice watches, right? When I made any commissions, it would go to these kind of things. And after that, I wouldn't have much money left for myself. I was always investing in looking good. So I would always have tailored shirts, tailored pants. And at the time, I also invested in a gym membership as well, right? Nothing wrong. At the beginning, it was fine. But then it started to get a little bit tricky because everyone was investing in stocks at the time. And that was in 2008, right? And the market was still very volatile from the subprime and Lehman Brothers, okay? And I had a friend, a colleague, okay, who was trading stocks very regularly. He wasn't really focused on doing his job, okay? But he was someone who was doing stock trading. But what he was doing a mixture of contra trading, and he had an actual account as well. So the dangers of contra trading was that you didn't have to put actual money in your account. All you had to do was have a limit that was extended by your broker, and you would be able to trade up to that amount without having to settle your losses within as long as you settled your losses within 7 working days, you would be fine. So I was like, okay, that sounds pretty interesting, and it seems like he's doing pretty well for himself. But what I didn't know is that he had the experience to do so. So that's one thing, right? Having the experience to know whether or not you have the skills to make the money. I didn't have any of those skills, okay? Being a banker doesn't mean that you are a good trader, okay? It just means that you're very familiar with the financial products that is available in the bank, and at the same time, you're very familiar on how to process transactions and open accounts for your clients. That is just that, all right? We only know how to do that. But when you're talking about structuring a product, All these are very, very different levels of skills already. So when I was trading, I was involved in Forex, I was involved in stocks, and I lost a whole chunk of my commissions that I made. I was like, okay. So obviously I wasn't deterred. I told myself I could take the hit, I would always make it back from my job. But there came a point of time when I realized that if the market was already at a low, right, we needed to have the liquidity to put our money in. And that was when I convinced my parents, you know what, why don't we take an equity loan from the home? So an equity loan is to release value, or we release some value from an appreciating property. So if you have a loan, okay, just to give you a breakdown, if your home has a valuation of $1 million, okay, and you took a loan of say 300,000, okay, that means you have for simplicity's sake, I'm not going to count the interest and all that. So you have an upside additional value of 700,000, okay. You could take up to 80% of that 1 million. Okay, that's what banks will do for you. So in this case, I could actually convince my parents to take up to an additional 400,000 since their loan was at 400,000. You see where I'm coming from? But I only decided to take 150,000. So after much negotiation, my parents were willing to extend this equity loan to me, right? Having zero assets, zero liabilities, and I was making good commissions at the time, why not? So they were kind enough to extend that loan to me, and I took that amount of money and I started experimenting and going into various types of investments in the stock market. And we're talking about anywhere from the US stocks to Singapore stocks, and then from then we would even trade a little bit of euro stocks. But at the end of the day, long story short, I lost it all over a course of 2 years, because during that time there was another dip that happened after 09, and that was like the further dip that we are kind of experiencing in the crypto market. Okay, so imagine being 26 years old at the time. You lost $150,000 of your parents' money. Now, $150,000, ladies and gentlemen, is 120,000 US dollars sunk and gone. Okay, this was not towards a student loan. This was not to study medicine or anything of the sort. It was 120,000 US dollars sunk at the age of 26. Can you imagine the amount of stress I felt and how much I let my parents down, that I couldn't even turn a small profit or at least even make the money that I claimed that I could have made? And why was I in this shit shape? Because I didn't have the knowledge, and at the same time I didn't take the time to learn. Had I invested at least some of that 150,000 into educating myself how the stock markets function, how to trade effectively, and at the same time learning to take profit and putting stop losses, I would not have been in this situation. Okay, now fast forward till today. Okay, fast forward, and after more than 15 years of being a salesperson, and at the same time always being hungry to find out what's the latest opportunities on how to make money, I was able to clear everything, and not only that, make 10x of what I had lost. And from then everything started to come together, and of course we were able to start a business. And then from then, that business started to generate strong amounts of revenue. We are earning 6 figures, almost 7 figures worth of revenue till today. Now you may say that, oh, you know me now as the Ryan that has already made it, but there's still so much more that needs to be done. And the whole idea of this episode, guys, is to have a high income skill. You should not care too much about what other people are doing. Okay, that's one thing. firstly, having a high income skill is very, very important. In the event, okay, and why am I sharing this with you? In the event that if you lose your job, okay, and why do I say this? I'm not scaring you, but the global economy is really in bad shape, okay? It's really in a bad situation at the moment. It's just a matter of time before the whole thing implodes or really has a catastrophic domino effect that is worse than the 2008, 2009. And if you are one of those unlucky people that loses their job, what are you going to do? So you need to learn how to have these kind of skill sets. In the event that something bad happens, you are still able to feed yourself and your family. Okay? Now the next thing is that if you are still one of those people that are keeping up with the Joneses, as they say, okay, where you just want to have the nicest house on the block, it must be definitely driving the best cars all the time, and you're having more than you should. I think there are people that have more than two cars, right? And I understand that, you know, having two cars sometimes can be pretty normal in most circumstances. For example, I can afford more than two cars and I can pay them all off in cash. But I chose to only have one because at the end of the day, I don't need more than one. In fact, I take public transport, I take Grab all the time. And my wife is the one that does all the driving, okay? And the whole idea of this is just basically best practices. Because in Singapore, cars are really expensive. And for you to even own a car is already a luxury, okay? And having a home, having two homes, right, is also having a headache in itself. Because firstly, you always have to find someone to come and rent the place. And of course, in Singapore, being that there's really there's very little mass. Okay, the whole Singapore is a very small country, so property prices are very expensive. So you always do not have to worry about finding renters. Okay, but it's also troublesome because you don't know whether they'll always be paying. There's always that issue. Then at the same time, you have to deal with the fact that you have mortgages on the homes. You want to be able to have a positive ROI and be able to rent out the home, or don't even own a home at all, because I think renting is actually a very good thing. You see, this is something that a lot of people don't really get. Renting is, although it's a little bit uncertain because the person who owns the home could always increase the rent on you. But if you think about it, if you're someone who is single or you are a couple at the moment, moving around isn't that difficult. But however, when you do have children, it is always good to have your own home because you can't have your landlord wanting you to, suddenly unreasonably increasing your salary, increasing your rent, or the next thing, you have a situation where you're in a tight spot and you have kids, right? That's when it gets really, really stressful, okay? Because if you have a kid and there's a situation where you lose your job and you're having all these liabilities running on you, that's when it gets really scary. And a lot of people don't want to admit it, okay? I'm not here to call you out. I'm here to help you reflect on your situation. When I buy anything, whether is it out on a nice meal with the family, luxury goods or whatever, I pay everything in cash, or I pay the credit card bill because most of them don't even accept this debit card, right? In luxury stores, they tend to have the habit of not accepting debit cards or something like that. So what I would always do is clear my bill at the end of the month, okay? This is how you can get yourself to financial freedom faster, okay? And I was very, very, very certain that I wanted to be financially free. Initially, I thought I could do it by 30. Hence, I took the loan from my parents, right? Because I wanted to achieve financial freedom by the time I hit 30. But instead, I got myself into a financial debt. Now, there's a difference between being in debt and being broke. Being broke is another episode altogether. I'm talking about now that if you're in debt, you really need to start not to tighten up your belt, but you need to start investing in yourself. You need to start investing in being knowledgeable on how to make more money than you are making now. We all know that a lot of people are having a running debt that is more than their basic salary, or worse still, it's almost all of their basic salary. So I have been in that exact same situation because of the $150,000 debt. I didn't get into that situation, okay, I didn't purposely put myself in that situation. I was someone who was relatively prudent in my spending. Like I said, I didn't get my first car until I turned 32. I didn't get my first car until I turned 32. So I was someone who was never keeping up with the Joneses. But I was hungry to get rich. But because I was hungry to get rich and I lacked the knowledge, I lost money. So a lot of people, right, tend to love to watch YouTube for the fun stuff. I get it. You worked really hard the whole day. You needed to drive 1.5 hours. There's no energy left for me to watch a 30 minutes to 1 hour long episode like this. But you know what? I hope that you do take the time to at least watch this episode, and it helps you to reflect on your current financial situation. And the most important thing is that you start finding the answers to your financial freedom. Because if you don't achieve financial freedom fast enough, when you hit the age where you are no longer valuable to a company, or you are going to retire, you're going to be working for a long time. And the reality of it is that now when lifestyle, everything is just more expensive because of inflation. Food is more expensive, property is more expensive, transportation is more expensive. Everything is just more expensive. And if you are going to be dependent on government, maybe in your country you have government, what do you call it? We don't even have it, right? Government benefits, right? Singapore, you don't think about having government benefits unless you are the lowest tier of you're in poverty. Then you can talk about government benefits where you have fully subsidized medical care and all that. In Singapore, if you're not in that income bracket where you're earning less than I think $1,000 a month, you have zero, very low benefits. You have subsidy and government hospitals as a citizen, but a lot of things you have to pay for yourself. Okay? There's no such thing as if you're out of the job, you're going to get government assistance and live on food stamps or whatever. And if you are truly in that situation, and I've seen it, I've seen how the American people could be, and American and European people, because they have government benefits, they are able to just, okay, every month I get a little bit of compensation, and what can I do, right? And they're happy with a few $100s a month. That is the worst way to live your life. That is the worst way to live your life. Like, you are just living from end to end, and you are not happy. But do you have a choice? I think there are many people who are stuck in that situation and they don't know how to get out, because it is just a spiral and you're just stuck in a well. Don't be in that situation and then you start thinking, although I am financially free, I am always hungry. I'm always hungry to build a new business. I'm always hungry to look for the next opportunity. I'm always hungry to meet my new clients, because I never stop. The only reason why I'll stop, because I'm dead. That's the only reason. And even if I'm dead, I know that my family is well taken care of financially, that my wife will never have to work a single day in her life, and at the same time, my kids are going to be well taken care of. If that was you today, can you say the same thing? Can you really touch your heart and say the same thing? If you're single and you have no liabilities at the moment, start thinking on how you can become financially free as soon as possible, or how you can maintain being financially free. That is the key, because I know my audience is between 25 to 35 years old. Unfortunately, a large part of you guys have a degree. So if you have rich parents that paid off that that degree for you, all good. But if that was on a loan, which 90%, 99% of the population will be on a student loan, that means you have to really start thinking on how you're going to clear that student loan atop of the potential rent that you have to pay, on top of the running liabilities like internet, handphone, your monthly handphone bill, together with your whatever monthly amenities that you have. You have to start thinking, how am I going to make more money compared to what I have in my job? Can I start a side gig, right? And from that side gig, I want to turn that into a full-blown business. Or I can just do that as a side gig so that my side gig pays for all my liabilities. Whatever I have from my day job, I can set aside and spend some whenever I want, but I set some aside for some investments. You see how that situation just changes automatically. Just imagine if you were able to make $1,000 extra a month. Heck, let's just say if you made a $100 to $500 extra a month. How will that help you in your current situation? Now, obviously, the older you are, the more liabilities you have, that has to go up. It scales accordingly to your current lifestyle. So you got to start thinking about all these things, right? And if you're wondering, like, how can I get all these things done? Guys, I have lots of resources in the links in the description below, okay? I have a full free course on how to trade and invest in cryptocurrencies, right? At the same time, I will be starting a course on how to start a business from scratch. So if you're interested in all these things, feel free to comment in this video. And at the same time, if you felt that this video was of value to you, don't forget to give it a like, and don't forget to share it, especially if you have friends who are in this kind of situation, or you feel that you guys want to do this together, start a business together. Maybe you can share this video and become financially free as well. And don't forget, guys, I would really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell so that you will never miss another live stream. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next live stream.